So I'd like to welcome you all back to another episode of the Unframe of Mind show. Today I've got a friend that I think we've spoken before. It's been a while. It's been a long while. And matter of fact, I've actually been on his show quite a while ago, the Rational Rise with Sven and his friend James Fox Higgins. And you might have seen the debate that me and his partner James had about God and whether God is good. That was a fun one. So we've had a little interaction. Sorry.
Yeah, James's conversion certainly took me by surprise, man. So
No.
I'm in the same boat as you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was going to ask you about that. I didn't know if you wanted that to be an on the record thing or
No,
what.
that's okay.
But yeah, it was rather surprising going from one extreme to another, I would say. But at any rate,
we still line up on all the important matters, but he seems to get there a different way than me. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's I still think he's a great guy. He's well spoken, well thought out kind of fella. So, but we're not here to talk about him. We're here to talk about you today. No. We're here to talk about you because you seem to be really excited, as I am, about this whole blockchain crypto evolution or revolution, even if you dare to call it that. That seems to be hitting us right now, and it seems like it's like the world's best kept secret sometimes. I don't know if you feel that way. If you don't mind, give me a little background information. How did you come across crypto, and like what is it that excites you about it? Like what's the thing that makes you feel like you need to be an evangelist for this new technology?
Yeah, well, I guess I was totally primed for it just because I read science fiction all my teenage life, and was just heavily involved with computers and was kind of around at the very cusp of the beginning of the internet. I still remember being on bulletin boards, BBSs, back when we're just calling up from one modem to another sort of thing. So, and I just think this is the next step that technology is taking. It's digitizing everything, and money's the next thing in that list. But I think everyone has stories of like, I heard about Bitcoin in 2010 or 2000 and whatever, and didn't buy in until whenever. And yeah, it's quite embarrassing for me. Like I remember Stefan Molyneux interviewing Andreas Antonopoulos probably like 5 or 6 years ago now, and I was just a poor hippie, still kind of am in some ways. So I never got onto it at that stage. And it was really only just about a year ago that I actually purchased my first Bitcoin. So I got in like right before the end of the pump, end of 2017. And yeah, we went up really high and now we've gone down really low. But yeah, I do agree that it's a revolution, but I think it's an economic one and not a technological one that people usually describe it as, like blockchain, all the things. I don't think that's really the most important facet of it. So yeah.
So now you're just a poor hippie with a bunch of worthless tokens. Is that what you're?
No, I don't have any worthless tokens. I never really jumped on the altcoin hype train, and I'm pretty glad of that. But it's only been a year, and this was my first ever experience like doing anything in any kind of market. So I've had to learn a lot really quickly, and trying to learn technical analysis and stuff like that, and just wading through all the bullshit. And in this year, I can see, there was a period where I was very enamored of all the altcoins out there, but within a few months, I kind of saw through all the hype and all the bullshit, and quickly focused on like, well, actually Bitcoin is the most important thing. And the reasons for that, again, I think because I was primed economically, especially like from an Austrian economics perspective. And, it's just the economic illiteracy in society in general now is just like staggering. Like people don't understand what inflation is. They don't fundamentally understand what money is. And I think I have this real reverence for money. Like I see it as the way that we organize societies, and it's because of this ability to store value in some abstract thing that we can plan for the future, and it leads to division of labor, and that's where all the wealth in the world comes from. So, but governments everywhere have totally fucked up money because they can print it at will. So it doesn't actually contain any value.
We'll certainly move into that direction. I do like the fact that you have like the exact same story as everybody else. Is like, I wish I would have invested in Bitcoin in blank. And now that it's blank, now that I'm doing it, now that I've, and now it almost feels like it's too late. But no, it's not too late, guys. It's not too late.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No.
I remember specific numbers. I remember specifically when I first heard about it. I think it might have been around the same time you might have heard about it. But I remember looking and seeing that I could get one Bitcoin for $114. And of course, I was a noob at it. A lot of people look at that price and they're like, "Oh, I don't have $114 to put in." And I was like, I didn't know you could buy just a portion of a Bitcoin. I didn't know,
Right.
and now I do. The way I approach it now, it's more of a dollar cost averaging approach where I have just, a few bucks a week, nothing that I'm afraid to lose. If it goes to zero, I'm okay. It's more like my free money, my blow money, if you will. And so that just, I set it, I forget it, it comes out of my bank, it goes in there, and I don't have to think about it. And it just,
nice.
It's super easy, and I don't even look at it. So that prevents me from trying to ride the emotional roller coaster of a very volatile industry right now. And to your point,
that's a fantastic strategy. It's what I tell my friends and family as well. Like, don't be a slave to the charts and watching the value every day or every hour or every 5 minutes. Like, you're just going to drive yourself insane. Think of it as like a long-term, 10-year investment. And as you say, don't invest more than you can afford to lose. So yeah, it's very wise.
Yeah, a buddy of mine, we were sitting there doing that for a little while in the run-up to the end of 2017 when Bitcoin, as you know, almost hit 20,000 in some places. Or 20,000 US dollar in some places. And it was pretty insane. And we were sitting there, like, we'd check it in the morning, we'd check it at lunch, and then be like, hey, oh my God, what the fuck? It's gone all the way up to this. so we were so excited, like our minds were blown, like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And it was like you could feel that emotional pull of, I have got to buy more of this somehow. And I was like, I was sitting there, I didn't act on any of it, luckily, but I was sitting there thinking, like, man, I could ask my neighbor to borrow a bunch of money. I could go to the bank and I could second mortgage. And I know a lot of people did do that. And
Yep.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I had the smarts not to, but a lot of people don't. So let me ask you this. This is something that seems to be a major. It's like almost like a Damocles sword hanging over the industry. Is the idea of regulation to protect those people from their own stupid mistakes. To be honest, that's really what the regulation is for. It's like, you guys are too stupid to. I guess I'm already letting out my opinions of it. What do you think about the idea of trying to regulate?
Well, it's tricky for us. Like, you're a libertarian, right?
I would say more so libertarian than
broadly speaking. Like, we want less government, and so it's a really
all right. Well, on that aspect, I'm an anarchist. I want no government.
Likewise, it's like, so
right.
Totally. I mean, I'm an anarcho-capitalist, so like, I just want freedom. Leave us the fuck alone. So it is very tricky, because I agree. I don't want, like, anything that governments do, they're going to fuck up. But at the same time, like, I truly believe that 99% of these altcoins are outright scams, and I know the same kinds of people. I know a guy that mortgaged his house, and we're talking like 5 figures that he put into the market, and I suspect it's dropped 80-90%.
5 figures.
Yeah, man. Like,
oh, man.
It's not good. And these people are just like, they don't know anything about. I knew nothing about markets when I got into it, and I was just like, and this was probably about this time last year, and I was just like, I can see this run up happening. I can see the hype building, and I need to learn as much as I can about what these markets are, what charts are. And very early on, I heard some random YouTuber, and he described the stock charts, the trading charts, as it's just a map of human psychology. It's a map of dopamine and and serotonin. Like, as people the hype builds on itself and things go parabolic, and then markets crash. That's just human psychology playing out in the markets. And I have this fascination with psychology at the same time as technology, and it's sort of and money as well, as a capitalist, as an anarcho-capitalist, and they all sort of come together in Bitcoin, and I think it's a really beautiful thing. So yeah.
So I didn't quite hear an answer about as far as how you feel about regulation itself. I know you said about governments fucking it up. Yeah, Before you do answer that, you said something in there that made me think about it. You said that all these people are making these dumb decisions, and they are really hurting themselves because they don't understand about markets, and they don't understand about charts, and they don't understand about human psychology and all that. That's a great answer, and it made me realize, wait a minute, if there wasn't already all this regulation in place to try to protect these people, wouldn't people? It would be more of a priority for people to actually learn this stuff, and would have already been prepared to deal with stuff like that. They would have already recognized that for what it was, and a lot less people probably wouldn't have fallen for it. Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely. Like anytime, it's something Jordan Peterson says, like if you do something, don't do anything for someone else that they can do themselves. And that's the government system that we have. It's the nanny state, and they want to just do everything for everyone. And, that makes people infantilizes people. So it's treating them like children. So yeah, I agree. People have to, the only way people learn is, the hard way fundamentally. So, but at the same time, I just think it's inevitable that all these altcoins, which at the end of the day, they're companies, they're going to be treated as, securities, because they're being traded for profit. So I just think that's totally inevitable. And I think it's going to be a good thing for the space if all these altcoins go to zero where they belong.
Now, I think that might be some place where you and I might disagree as far as the value of an altcoin versus. I'm assuming based on your language so far, you would consider yourself a Bitcoin maximalist. I've heard that term thrown around, and that just means basically you feel like Bitcoin is the number one and the only one, and all the rest of them are going to eventually fall away once everybody sees the value of Bitcoin. Is that a fair?
Yeah, that's essentially it.
Assessment?
Like the world only needs one hard money, and things will converge, because it just doesn't make sense to have to always convert things into different currencies. Like one book that I really recommend is The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous, and from the gold standard, the Bitcoin standard. And he mentions a statistic about the global Forex trade, which is a foreign currency exchange. So people trading Canadian dollars for US for euros or whatever. And it's $5 trillion a day, which is just mind boggling. And all that money, all that human effort, and maybe it's bots trading or whatever it is, but people are sitting there staring at these charts, trying to make fractions of a cent on trades, just so the whole fiat money system and global trade can work properly. Because when we were still on a gold standard, the whole world could trade amongst each other, and there was one standardized, we call it a unit of account, where we can convert every commodity and every good and every service into one other thing, and that just facilitates trade so much easier. So I think it's inevitable.
Okay, I think I see what you're saying. So basically, the Bitcoin would be the world reserve currency in this case. Let's say a hypothetical future. I want to kind of hash this out as far as the ultimate reality of what we might see. Let's say in the future, fiat money's gone away. Government money is third party controlled money is not a thing, and now we're looking at Bitcoin, and we're looking at potential altcoins as a possibility, right?
That's pretty far in the future. There's a lot of things
it'd be right.
Yeah.
Let's just say we're there already, and what I'm looking at is there was something that I learned a while ago, and it took a while for it to really click in my mind, and I know you're a big fan of Stefan Molyneux as well, and he said that something along the lines of you don't have a true free market until you have free market in currency. And
Absolutely.
I was like, that made no sense to me at first, because I didn't understand money. I didn't understand currency. I didn't know what it was. Now, as far as defining the difference between money and currency is a very important distinction for people to do. I think it's very important for people to be educated about this stuff, and there is a very distinct difference between money and currency. And right now, our U.S. dollar, your government money, what do they call yours? What do you use in your country?
Dollars, Australian dollars.
Australian dollars. They're called dollars as well. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know everything.
That's all right.
I definitely don't know that. I don't have any need for that knowledge. I'm sorry. At any rate, those types of things are third party controlled, and they're owned by the government. They can do whatever they want with it. I had completely just lost my train of thought. I was going somewhere with that.
We were talking about currency and
Right, oh,
money.
right. So
Mm.
those government controlled monies, those are considered currencies. They don't fall under the definition of money. Gold does. Gold has all of the there's a list of like certain attributes that's required for it to be considered money. Gold does qualify. Bitcoin qualifies for that. So you could use either one. And let me run this by you, see what you think, because I think this might open your mind about altcoins a little bit. Insofar as I think you'll see what you'll see is something like Bitcoin being like what's now considered the world reserve currency. It'll be like the gauge that everybody uses. It'll be like top dog. I think it'll always stay top dog. I think all the altcoins will have their own specific value depending on the market they're serving. And what I mean by that is there is different ways you can use this technology that doesn't necessarily need to be trading currency and stuff. It doesn't need to be, or I'm sorry, not currency. It doesn't need to be trading money on an official level, but it could be still based off of the value of a Bitcoin. Insofar as I'm still trading, I'm trying to think like if I'm operating over here in a game studio, or not a game studio, an arcade, and you go in there, you trade your, let's say it's Bitcoin in this case, you trade it for the use of their own tokens, their money, and I can only use it in that environment, that economy, if you will, that small little arena, and other people that are there also see the value in that, and they may, you may have people working in that particular arcade in this example, and they may only get paid in those things, and they will only use them in that area. But at some point, they can also take those and trade them for Bitcoin and use them in other arenas. I think it's just like a central point for everything, but I don't see that it necessarily has to be the only one. Does that make sense?
No, I agree. Yeah, for sure. And so we call them utility tokens, so that there's some service that you need to have a particular token to use. So the arcade is a great example, and casino chips would be another example.
Right.
But they have like they have a fixed peg to the whatever the currency is. So if I'm here in Australia and I go to the casino, I buy $10 of casino chips. The value of those casino chips doesn't fluctuate, like, because it's being traded and speculated on an open market. So that's kind of the counter argument to having these utility tokens. Like, I understand that you might want them in that situation, but if you bought money at a casino, would you want it to be fluctuating in value? And if you were working at that casino, would you want, maybe someone comes to the casino and loses a bunch of money and it crashes the price of your casino token, which you're being paid in? You know what I mean?
I think that would be the problem. Is that's kind of where the analogy breaks down, is because now we're talking about more of a long-term strategy here. If I'm working at the casino and I'm getting paid in casino tokens, and I feel like that casino is doing really well, that could be my way of investing in their stock, so to speak. Yeah. I could hold that.
Companies already do that, right? They pay people in shares in the company. Yeah.
And that's all government controlled.
That's where it gets. Sorry.
and that's all government controlled, and we certainly don't want to be forced to do that. And most people kind of are forced to invest in the stock market in its current form. We're kind of forced to do that, or we risk losing our money. I can't take my money and hide it under my mattress and expect that it's still going to be worth the same. That money, or that US dollar, that fiat currency, is going to lose value just sitting in my pocket.
Yeah. So now we're going back to the fiat currency issue, and we went into the altcoins a bit, but just to finish that point,
sorry.
If you're not onto cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin, from my perspective yet, like, that is for me the number one reason that I think you should. Like, it's not even that Bitcoins necessarily are going to go up in value, but there's one thing you can absolutely be sure of, is that every fiat currency around the world, those governments, they're addicted to free, easy money. They are going to keep printing money, and I think the average inflation rate is something like 5%, which doubles the money supply after 15 years. So with a modest 5% yearly inflation rate, just so people understand, after 15 years, the purchasing power of every dollar you have has been halved. Okay. Correct. And that's that people don't understand that, that this isn't taught to people when money is at like the very root of society. And it just distorts every calculation that people can make. Entrepreneurs can't plan for the future because the money isn't fixed. It's just
at least
it's just
not
such a
long term
clusterfuck.
anyway, right? Yeah.
And that's one of the I think the greatest point that I got from the Bitcoin Standard book is he links fiat money and the inflationary fiat money to this idea of human time preference. So some people are focused on the short term, and if we have a money supply that is going to be worth less in the future, of course you're going to be incentivized to spend it now because, in 5 or 10 years, it's going to be, half the value. So I don't know, it seeps down into everything that people do. So I don't know, it's really insidious, but it's for that reason that Bitcoin is going to keep growing in value. Like, there are never going to be more than 21 million Bitcoins, and people keep losing their private keys, so there's going to be even less than that.
I've heard estimates around 15 million is still around 6 million have been lost already. I don't know if that's
for sure
true,
and
but
Satoshi's wallet contains like 1 million Bitcoins as well. So but the point is, no one can make any more. Like, they can keep pulling gold out of the ground. I think the inflation rate of gold is like 2% a year, between 1% and 2%. So that's really like hard money. It's hard to inflate the supply, but Bitcoin is going to be fixed.
Yeah, one of the arguments against the whole crypto idea to begin with, I hear all the time, is, well, governments can print money whenever they want, but with this crypto stuff, like, anybody can just go make their own crypto and just basically print more money. What's the difference? I mean, I know the difference,
well,
but I just want to hear you explain it.
Yeah, for sure. The difference is that the free market gets to choose which currency to go with, and we see that playing out. That is what a market is. It's a tool for price discovery. Like, that's why we have free markets, is so that we can work out what something is worth. We don't, as anarchists, we don't believe in central planning, because the government, it can't know how much something is worth unless you get people to bid on it. And the thing that I love about Bitcoin in particular is it kind of like hard codes anarcho-capitalist principles, because the only way you can exchange value with someone is through voluntary means, which means you have to provide value to them. Right. And no one can forcibly take it away from you. So
you want to know a secret? That's kind of what excites me about this crypto industry, is because I'm seeing a future, if this does take off, and it will take off, that there is no longer any need for governments, because that strips them of their power, and they're going to be revealed for what they really are. Yeah. And that's going to be a major revolution in the world. In terms of this shift of power, of this imbalance of power from the powerful to the people. It's like for the first time, arguably for the second time, but for the first time ever, at least in a long ass time, people are going to have control over their own destinies and be able to make these decisions for themselves, and not have to be protected from every little cut and scrape that they might receive by making risky decisions in the financial markets. But you said something. Oh, if you had something to say, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's a beautiful vision, man. Like, that technology can just sort of circumvent governments, and my God, man, they're not going to give up without a fight, and it's going to get pretty ugly and pretty rough, I think. But
now, you said something a little while ago that people aren't educated about, the fact that of how our currency loses its value over time through inflation, through money printing, and that kind of thing. And I think my first inclination of this was when I was probably a teenager. My mom had told me that she used to be able to take $1 and purchase a value meal at McDonald's and still have money left over to go buy a pack of cigarettes and a soda pop at the gas station, at a convenience store. They're pretty expensive there. So she thought with $1 she could do that, and she's not but 20 years older than me. Okay, yeah. So I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God. And when you start looking into this stuff, and you learn that the U.S. dollar itself has lost over I think it's around 97% of its value since like 1917 or 1920, or I don't have the dates right off the top of my head.
When they came off the gold standard?
When they came off the gold standard, it got even worse. But I'm talking about from when the Federal Reserve was created, this whole process started. of losing value at a phenomenal rate. You're gonna have to do your own research to find the numbers, but that's kind of the general gist of it. I know the general kind of decade we're in, but yeah, once the Federal Reserve was created, this whole process started going downhill. And then when Nixon took us off the gold standard in '71, you just see the price of money go way up. Like this is. These are all terms that need to be understood, I think, for people to really get the value of this crypto and why we're so excited about it. And I would personally recommend starting with a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, in terms of getting in terms of getting your financial education, at least getting it kickstarted and getting excited about even wanting to learn about money, because they make it sound so boring. Like when I was in school. This stuff sounded so boring. Like I like money and finance and I don't know. I had this. I don't know. It just something. The way it was being taught. I don't know if that was just me because I was young. I don't know, but it was just something about it. I was not interested in learning, but.
Well, I try to resist getting all conspiratorial, but like I remember at school the economics thing was just all about accounting and like adding up columns of numbers and nothing about what money actually is and what it's done for humanity. And the way I've conceptualized it recently is like money is crystallized human life force and energy. Like it's the way we can project the work that we do in the moment into the future. It's our life force that we put value into it, and then we can spend that in the future. That's a beautiful thing. But about the economic ignorance, I actually run a little website called truthtags.com.au. We make I make philosophical bumper stickers and stuff like that, and I have this one. Maybe you can see that.
Taxation is theft.
Indeed. And for the last like libertarian conference I went to, I printed up a bunch of like inflation is theft stickers, and like what you said about like 97% of the money supply of the purchasing power, like the value of the US dollar being obliterated in less than 100 years.
Right.
Like if that's not theft, then what is it? And I think people would be like totally outraged and up in arms if they actually saw this, but it just seems to be one of those boiling frogs situations.
Yeah,
like it just happens a little bit at a time, and maybe across a person's like half a lifetime they can kind of see like, hang on, things are 5 times more expensive than when I was a kid, but they don't connect what it is. And the tragic thing is that people blame the shop owner down the road. Like I run a small business, and every year I have to put my prices up. It's not because I'm greedy. It's because the purchasing power of every dollar is being eroded.
Yeah, you get this whole propaganda about those greedy Walmart people. They want their money and they're underpaying their employees, and they don't see the effects of what's really going on. The deeper level effects. All they see is when they go purchase a gallon of milk, they're like, oh God, we've lost all this is so expensive. Walmart's so greedy. They want all of our money. It's like, no, that's not Walmart. It's not Walmart. That's not how economics works at all. Not even close.
So the question is like, what are governments going to do about it? Because like, as you mentioned before, it's their central method of control. The way they force people to use, a particular country is that it's like, we only accept taxes in, US dollars here. So they force everyone to use them, and they're very, very staunchly against anyone coming out with a competing currency. But now something's happened, like thanks to the technological aspects of it, they can't shut it down. And like the internet treats censorship as an error and just routes around it. So, like I said, it's going to get really ugly. But yeah, it's just inevitable. I mean, it's happened when with BitTorrent. Like I remember using Napster back in the day, and it got shut down because it was centralized. But with Bitcoin, it is genuinely, unlike all these altcoins that like to claim they're decentralized, there's no, head of marketing, or there's no CEO or anything like that. Bitcoin doesn't even have a website, like Bitcoin.com, is owned by Roger Ver, and the Bitcoin.org, like it's
which
not
makes
really,
it confusing.
Oh my God. Like, and there's just so much confusion in the space. Like in this past year, I've done pretty much nothing but, focus on crypto, learning technical analysis, and just wrapping my head around this because I see, after like we have the example of BitTorrent. The better example actually is, do you know what runs the internet? Your operating system runs the internet.
I'm gonna guess it's Linux.
It's Linux. Yeah.
Linux.
And it's open. Well, the guy's name is Linus Torvalds, who invented it.
Okay.
But
I didn't know that.
It's like North, Scandinavian, somewhere up there. But it's totally open source. It runs like on 90% of the computers that run the internet. Yeah, well, it's all open source.
Wow.
Unix.
I didn't know that. I've been using Windows for so long. I've never even tried Linux. Those damn Scandinavians pronouncing shit all weird.
And another
Australians
thing about, the other example would be like the TCP IP protocol, which again runs the internet. It's like 20 or 30 years old now, and this is my counter argument to people saying, Altcoin is saying that Bitcoin's old technology, it's 10 years old now, and my counter to that is like, no, like the fact that it is in quotes old is one of its strengths. It is resisted change for like these past 10 years, and that's what you want in money. You want your money to be as hard as possible. You don't want someone to be able to come along and decide to print more of it, or decide anything about it, because that's going to totally undermine confidence on it in the future, and it doesn't have that store of value use case anymore. So.
Dude, I totally understand where you're coming from, and I totally agree with what you said about Bitcoin being this solid foundation. The fact that it's got a track record, the fact that it's been around as long as it has, and the only times that it's been hacked is when people are involved in making stupid mistakes, and not being responsible with their private keys. I think that's even though it does seem to be pretty volatile in price range, that makes it seem more stable than any other option right now, and it gives people a nice solid footing to. And I think it'll be a great measuring tool for all other competitors, all other options, and I don't think they have to. I don't think all the rest of them have to go away in order for one to be the strongest. I think there is a place for other cryptos. Maybe not specifically for the use of currency. I don't know. I don't really care, to be honest, as long as we're doing it voluntarily and in a free way. I don't know if you're aware of this, but as much as you've been talking about altcoins and that kind of thing, I'm actually the head of director of marketing for Airwire.io.
Okay. Yeah.
So
you are one of those.
I am one of those guys.
Yeah.
And I did pose the questions to the founders about whether how is this. What was the question? They had tried to. What was the question? They had tried to get a patent for the technology because, and I tried to get a little more explanation from them about why they feel like a patent would. How's that even enforceable? Like, anybody in the world could, that's a U.S. law. And the other countries don't give a shit about that necessarily. And the way he explained it to me is they do have their own blockchain. The way their blockchain works is it's the wire token is what they use. The Airwire platform is like an app built on top of the blockchain. That's the portion that's centralized. The wire token is decentralized, and the actual platform itself is centralized. It's got customer service. It's got the developers that are getting paid that are trying to make sure to get out the new updates and that kind of thing. So I think everybody's just trying to feel their way around this whole industry and feel kind of get a sense of what it is. What can we do with it? How can we have I don't think centralization is a dirty word. I as much as a lot of people do, I think there is a certain benefit to it in terms of just getting shit done in general. There is an efficiency that is available to us. It's just a matter of whether it's done voluntarily and it's providing value to people, which in this case, for me, I got turned on to them. It just seemed like a great project they were working on. It may not last. I don't know. If it does, I'm fantastic. I'm super excited about it. I think these are great guys. In no way, shape, or form do I feel like it's a scam. I know that was the word you used there. I don't know that all altcoins are scams. I know some of them are for sure. But I think for the most part, everybody's just in this arena, and just they are making their own mistakes, and they are trying to learn. Some of it's going to work, most of it's not. It's just a huge, like, when you kind of get these new things, you have the whole storming process. You know, you got, and right now I think we're in the middle of the storm where everybody's just trying to go, okay, so what is this? How can we use it? What can we do with it? How can we make people happy? How can we please customers? What do people want? You know, and everybody's still trying to learn, and it's so fascinating, and there's so many people excited about it, and not everybody can be Bitcoin developers necessarily yet. I think maybe in the future, what's going to happen is we're going to see people move toward Bitcoin as that top dog, like the top of the pyramid, and everything else will just kind of trickle down from there, and people can be free to do and position themselves in any position within that pyramid they so choose.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a bunch of things in there, but I do agree with you.
I didn't mean to fire hose you there.
Yeah, I do agree with you about the centralization is not necessarily a bad thing, and I think there's a case to be made like that. Money is like one of the only things that does need to be decentralized. We had a separation of church and state. We need separation of economics and state. Okay.
Agreed.
So I'm all for Bitcoin being totally decentralized, and it's the only way it can work. But I think decentralization, this idea, has become one of those hype buzzwords that people are just like, oh, if we make it decentralized, we can make a lot of money. You know, if we can put a blockchain on it, we can make a lot of money. So, and kind of got to have some historical perspective and remember what happened in the 90s with the .com bubble. Like, it's the .com bubble all over again. There were websites with hundreds of millions of dollars valuation, approaching the billions, and they didn't actually do anything. And for me, it's such a clear analogy for what we have with ICOs who have no product, who and essentially we have like a PDF, a white paper, that's worth $1 billion. There's nothing there. There's no product. There's no factory. Like there's nothing there. And this is why I think it makes sense that regulators do need to move into this to some degree, because I don't know how to back that up coming from as an
I was waiting. I was waiting.
Well, I just think it's inevitable.
So what's wrong with letting people take their licks? I just don't understand. I mean, certainly nobody's dying. I mean, I'm sure they might be committing suicide at some point because they've done fucked up so bad. But
honestly, I'm really torn on this issue. Like, I think altcoins and ICOs, like, I wish they would go away, but I think it's just a matter of time. So probably, like, the most ethical thing to do is like you said, it's voluntary. People are voluntarily buying these things, but that's why I kind of see it as my duty to speak out against it, because no one else is educating people about this. So I'm just tell people, like, very, very wary on these altcoins, which at the end of the day, there's no actual value there. And oh no, I hate that .com issue. So, but the other thing about a blockchain is it's the most inefficient possible way to like store data, so I just think even if there is an ICO that comes out with a use case that uses a blockchain to do something, and a blockchain is decentralized. That's the whole point. That means you can have a bunch of different nodes that are processing and verifying things on the blockchain. And then that means there's such a massive overhead in resources. So if you have a successful use case, someone will just come along with a totally centralized version of that and achieve the same result without the overhead of a blockchain. So, I just don't see any of these ICO projects around in the long term.
That's certainly possible. What I'm seeing right now is I'm thinking what's going to happen, and what I asked the development team is, yes, we're built on our own blockchain. What I foresee happening with this, and don't tell nobody, even though I'm putting this out public. Anyway, what I foresee happening is that the developers have made sure, at least that's what I'm to understand, to make sure that we can still take that same technology, the Airwire platform, and move it over onto another blockchain if necessary. Which I think that would be fantastic. I mean, I foresee a lot of apps being developed on top of Bitcoin. I just learned the other day that Bitcoin does have the potential for smart contracts, the very thing that Ethereum is claiming that its specialty is, which it might be. I don't know. The fact is that I kind of see maybe there's going to be a lot of centralized apps being built on top of a decentralized currency platform. Does that make sense? I think that's
definitely.
I think there, because like you said, there is value in centralization of database information and stuff like that. And if we can get platforms building on top of this infrastructure being Bitcoin, it would be like building a website on top of HTML or the TCP/IP protocol. I think that's going to be its position in the long run. It's like everybody's going to eventually kind of group in around it. I don't know. There's no way of telling for sure, but it's just I'm just spitballing, just same as you are, kind of educated guesses, if you will, as far as what's coming in the future. But I think that'll be a very neat thing to see, this hybrid thing of decentralized currency, centralized apps being built on top of it, and just the whole economy around it that's completely anarchic in all senses of the word. And that's what's I'm excited about for the future.
Yeah, for sure. And like we have that with Lightning Network coming out as a second layer solution for like payments on Bitcoin. And that's one of the things that I want to kind of get through to people, is because Bitcoin was sort of sold as a competitor to things like Visa and PayPal at first, and I don't think that's necessarily what it's going to be, at least the base blockchain of Bitcoin. There's just not enough room for like billions of transactions a day on that blockchain. So we need second layer scaling solutions. And that's like another criticism of this whole idea of like decentralize everything. Like, you buy a coffee for, $5 or something like that. Why does like every human being on the planet need to have a record of your coffee transaction? So, this idea of like decentralize everything, I just don't think it's accurate or efficient, and that's not how it's going to end up.
Right.
And then so is Airwire on Ethereum?
Before you go on with that, let me ask you about the whole the Lightning Network and the cup of coffee idea. I just looked at Lightning Network to understand what it is the other day, and let me see if I've got this correct, and you can correct me where I'm wrong. Basically, the second layer solution, it makes it so that say I'm Starbucks and we do a bunch of transactions, and instead of making every single one of those cups of coffee sold placed on the blockchain, on the ledger, we take all of our transactions that have been done throughout the day in our own little trusted, app or what have you, and then we submit the total purchase for the day, or maybe the total purchases for the week, onto the blockchain, and that's what actually gets put on. Is that pretty accurate? And it's just done.
That's a good example.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of as a boat's going through the water, you see the little waves come off, and they kind of feed back into it. It's almost like those little. That's my Starbucks coffee purchase over here, and then it goes back into the overall big. I don't know. I'm still trying to get my mind around how that would work, and I think that's what I've got so far.
Yeah, individuals create payment channels to other people, and then transactions can hop between those payment channels without having to go on the main blockchain. So, and for that reason, they're pretty much instantaneous. It's kind of like having an IOU. So, it's complicated stuff, obviously. So, but yeah, it's just payment channels that individuals can make to each other, and you don't have to broadcast things out to the entire ledger, to the entire Bitcoin network. So and this stuff's all developing, and that's kind of what you were describing earlier with different altcoin networks, being used in their own specific ways. Like, we can still have these small communities doing their own thing, but just using that foundation layer of Bitcoin to achieve it. So yeah, we can stack things on top of that, and we'll still see those, higher level decentralized things.
And what the funny thing about all this is as complicated as this all sounds, this technology that we're explaining here, it's even more complicated trying to understand the US dollar and how it actually works, or any government currency for that matter. Try going in and giving an honest to goodness effort understanding of how that money actually operates. That I cannot tell you how it works. It makes no sense to me. It's not supposed to make sense. It's supposed to be complicated so people don't look into it. So like you said, it is complicated technology, and it has got a lot of stuff still going for it, and a lot of stuff still being in development and trying to get better. But it is nowhere near as complicated. It is very straightforward. You can learn it. Not nearly as complicated as fiat currency.
Right. And that's one of those arguments against Bitcoin, is like how much power it uses. And, there's one thing in economics, which is that you always have to ask the question, compared to what, and so, compared to the massive edifice of fiat currency and everything that fiat currency allows, like I truly believe if we didn't have fiat currency and governments could print their own money at will, that they couldn't finance their wars, because the only way they could, get money is to ask for money from their populace through taxation. And if people don't want to pay, then it's the end of wars. So it's a beautiful vision.
you started to ask something about Airwire and Ethereum. I didn't want you to forget that.
Yeah, you were just mentioning that they were getting, they were building their software in such a way that they could migrate it to a different blockchain. And I was just wondering, are they on Ethereum now?
Currently, they're on their own blockchain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they use the Wire token. Wire would be the equivalent to Bitcoin. And then
did they ICO?
I don't think so. I know they did a pre-sale of token pre-sale. I don't know if that's the same thing as an ICO necessarily. I don't know. I'm still kind of confused.
Did you have to buy Ethereum to buy their token?
Shit, it's been so long. I don't even remember, honestly. It's been a while. I know I took $100. However it took to get there, that's how I did it. And then I've been working for them, and they've just been paying me in tokens. And I've just been getting to learn the technology and learn through that mechanism of working with them and writing articles and making videos for them. That's been helping me understand this whole industry better. So it's still a win-win as far as I'm concerned. But I don't remember how I went about getting the tokens to begin with.
Sure. I mean, I would love to be involved in the space in any way possible, and it's kind of why I just make the videos and talk about it. But if some ICO crypto startup wanted to employ me, I'd be all over it too. So no criticism there from me for sure. Right. But even the Ethereum thing's a good example to bring up. Like Ethereum's the second largest cryptocurrency out there, right? And in terms of what I was saying about being resistant to change, I mean, we had the DAO hack, DAO, and Ethereum rolled back their blockchain to sort of circumvent that hack. So, unlike the Bitcoin blockchain, which has been it's just been resolute, it hasn't ever changed. What that showed is that Ethereum isn't bulletproof. They can edit history, so to speak.
Yeah, that's and probably not good.
That happened to the second biggest cryptocurrency out there. So, I just don't have any faith in these other ones that they are going to be like fixed in the long run. So they don't represent hard money to me.
Yeah, I understand, because that takes away a level of confidence that you should have in how stable your money is in terms of trust, or not trust for that matter. In that case, you still have to trust Vitalik Buterin to make sure that we don't do that again. I don't know. Like I said, I don't put a lot of money into these things in terms of any more than what I can afford to lose anyway. So it's just I'm having a good time learning it. I think most people would have a good time learning it. And if it goes up, it goes up. It's fantastic. I'm just really excited to see where we are a decade from now. I would love to see that.
Oh yeah,
pinpoint in history right now. That'd be fantastic. But at any rate, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, because some of us don't make money on our YouTube channels. We have to work real jobs. At any rate, but
yeah, I hear you, brother.
Sven, I really appreciate you coming on. I'll have a cryptocurrency conversation with you any day of the week. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, maybe next time we can get into more like the nitty gritty of like charting and stuff like that. But yeah.
All right, and where can people find you if they want to reach out to you for more information?
Yeah, well, you can find us on our YouTube channel. That's The Rational Rise. Find me on Twitter, Starfury Flames, and you can get your truth tags, philosophical bumper stickers at truthtags.com.au, now accepting cryptocurrencies. So, yeah.
Ooh, look at you, moving on up, man. All right, thanks for coming, man.